Hey, Sharon.
Hey, Rick. I know you like to talk about real estate, right?
One of my favorite topics.
um, we had just discussed about buyers and why now is still a good time to buy. And for them as a personal investment, how wise a choice it is. Well, let's talk about real estate generally as an investment and some great what the yield is like that. For folks that want to look at real estate, not just as a primary home, but as an investment property. I'd like you to share some thoughts on that.
Oh, well, I mean, now is a great time, I think, if that is something, if you want to be a landlord. You had mentioned in a previous video that rents year over year are up 23%.
Yeah.
I don't see, rents slowing anytime soon, the increases, given that Government of Canada plans to, I believe it was 500,000 immigrants a year they want to bring in, which most immigrants come to the major centers. I would say maybe 3/4 end up in Toronto or the GTA. So, they're not going to be able to build houses fast enough for that many people. There's already a shortage. So that's obviously going to put upward pressure on both housing prices and rents. So you're winning both ways if you're an investor, because you're getting high yields from the rental income, and you're also getting capital gains.
Right.
And so your principal residence, has unique tax treatment in that it is capital gain free. So, that is also an amazing, there's no other investment that can compare to that, because imagine you bought a house in say 1975 and, now you're, probably in your late 70s or early 80s or something. And you're going to sell that house. What other investment is going to have gone from say 25,000 to 2 million if you bought in a nice neighborhood or something?
Right.
And not have to pay tax on that. That is a huge return. And all that time you weren't paying rent to someone else. Also going back to the investor, if it's your if you're buying a rental property, the higher interest rates right now will actually lower your taxes because you can write off the amount of interest you're paying.
Right.
So it's if you look at it that way, and interest rates are still less than what the inflation rate is. If you look at real rates of return, what that means is you've got to look at, okay, so on this investment, the government's going to take their chunk of whatever money I make. So rent is obviously going to be taxable, but you can offset some of that, as I said, by writing off the interest. And you have to look at how much inflation is, because if you've got an investment that's worth $100 now and it's still worth $100 at the end of the year, if inflation is 5%, which would be nice to get back down to that again, at least, it'd be nice to get lower. But then if your investment's still worth $100 at the beginning of the next year, then your buying power has decreased to $95, right?
Gotcha.
You've lost that 5% from the inflation. So yes, it's
and also you have the you have the maintenance and improvements on the property. Then you have the capital expense of the renovations that are written off a percentage over the years. So you get to carry it over for a number of years, 5 to 7 years, whatever it is, right? So there's continually all of those expenses get written off as well. Well, you are still the owner of that property and you've renovated it and improved it, and you've still got these write-offs as well.
Well, you can also do capital cost CCA, capital cost appreciation.
Yeah.
Where you write off as if the value of the property is going down. Now they're going to recapture that when you sell it, unless through some miracle the value of the property actually does decrease.
Yeah.
But that's another opportunity for you to lower at least your present taxes. So Yeah, I mean, there's
And so to piggyback onto something that we had said earlier, just because it's in a different video, so they can do this and they can invest in this property, and now you've got a tenant, and you've got, so now I know we mentioned this at another time, but I want to mention it back in this video, the rinse and repeat method, if we will, right? So that now they can go out and buy another property once they've got themselves stabilized in this one and they got rent in it. They go buy another property, move into it. Now you've got two tenants in this property, and now you've moved into the other one. You're working your second property, doing the same as you did with the first property.
Yeah, and that's a loophole when you're keep making your current residence, you're turning that into the rental property, because you can buy the new property. You don't have to have 20% down like you normally would if it's not because it's going to be your principal residence. So you don't have to have 20% down in order to do so. And if you've owned your current house for a while, the equity you need to buy the new house might be sitting in your existing house. So we might be able to refinance your existing house so that you can come up with the down payment so that you can get that rental property.
I know someone in Etobicoke that bought a house in the late 1960s, and a tiny little bungalow. It's like a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. And of course, they did put in there's a shared entrance, and they did put in like an in-law suite. But they picked up that home in the 60s for $16,000. That's 16 and 3 zeros. That house in Etobicoke today is worth about, probably about 1.8. And and the lot that is sitting on the location that it is. But I mean, it's up there. It's the mid to the higher end of 1.5, 1.8. And so you look at that, and I know that's like, that's not 1960 anymore. But imagine looking back, you buying these properties now. Look back 10 years, look back 20 years, like and the appreciative value of just one property. So if you're investing and you've picked up multiples, then you've multiplied that kind of return on your investment, right, by the number of properties you have. So it's still relative.
Let's look at the alternative. Those people, instead of buying, rented. Right? Where are they now? Like they probably haven't, the difference in the cost of renting versus buying. Most people don't set that aside. Most people spend that on lifestyle. And then, of course, you've got the ever-increasing rental costs, right? Yeah. So once you lock in to the mortgage, you're going to have, fairly regular payments. Like you can lock it in for up to 5 years. Well, you can do 10 years. Very few people do. Yeah. But generally speaking, the percentage of because your income is going to continue to increase. So the percentage of your income that's going towards your mortgage will continue to shrink usually. And if interest rates go up or whatever, there's a very good chance you can refinance to lower those payments back down again. And yes, like if you can renovate so that you can create like a basement suite, that can be another source of income that's coming in. So I don't think that there is any financial decision you can make that would be more important than buying your own house.
And scrimping and saving and doing what it takes to get there, to get that first purchase. And then after that, give it time and stabilize it, and then just it's a lot easier, especially if you got all the right people in your team being able to guide you with that stuff.
Well, I mean, this example you gave of the 16,000 becoming 1.8 million. Yeah. Imagine if 10 years after they bought their first house, they went out and moved to another house, turned their first house to investment property. Now they've got 2 properties that are probably worth $1.8 million. Yeah. I mean, this is how some people become very wealthy.
Yes, and most of the people today that are wealthy have generated, I forget that percentage, is quite high. I believe I'm not sure, but I believe it's something like 78% of people today that are wealthy and generated their wealth primarily as a result of real estate.
Yep. And hey, maybe one day you can have a library like mine.
Yeah. And a window with a view like that.
There you go.
Thanks, Rick. Good chatting with you. Take care.
Have a
Bye.
good one. Bye.